What's up, YouTube? It's Rico here, CEO of SourceFind Asia, host of the Main Channel podcast, and of course, the host of the SourceFind Asia YouTube channel. Back with another one, still in Hong Kong. I'm flying out later today, and I'm sitting here with Iris from Neat. I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about Neat a bunch of times on the podcast, on the YouTube channel. I've been following Neat. I've been following their journey since the beginning of their inception, and it's pretty awesome to see what they've been doing. Checking out their offices here for the first time, and Iris was nice enough to sit down with me and talk about how the business was founded and where they're going in the future.
I'm on top of the mountain, babe. I'm just playing I still sad. I can't just change the quality of this. The quality of this. The quality of this. I'm not inferior to anyone you want to spend dollars. Want to buy your car. 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 I got nowhere else to go. I had nowhere else to go. What to buy a car. This shit is giving me a lot of money. I did not buy many luxuries. I never had a phone at school. 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 I can't.
Right, so Iris, you are the first employee of Neat, right?
Correct.
And give me a little bit of background about you. Who are you?
Sure. So my name is Iris. I am originally from the Netherlands, and I've been in Hong Kong for the past almost 4 years now, of which I spent 3 years here at Neat. So at Neat, I am focused on marketing. As the first employee, of course, in the early days, I was running around doing all kinds of things to help the business move forward. But now at the moment, as the team has grown, I am very much focused on digital marketing as well as on partnerships.
How did you discover Neat? How did you end up, what were you doing before that? And, how
So
did
my
you end up
background,
joining the team?
so my background is in marketing for startups, not necessarily finance or fintech. Actually, I think when you look at our team, you find out that a lot of people's backgrounds here is more from different startup backgrounds rather than from finance. And I think that's actually great because we can bring in a new perspective. And then, of course, we do have some people that have very strong banking backgrounds as well, such as our CEO. So I was doing marketing for an e-commerce company, for an analytics company. And then how I found out about Neat is actually because it was very early on. There was no product yet, no website yet. So how I found out was actually on a website called WHub. So WHub is a startup community here in Hong Kong. If you live here and you're into the startup scene, I'm sure that you've heard of them. So they host a lot of events, and they also have a job board. So at that time, I was looking for new opportunities, and I read about Neat. And the story immediately appealed to me because when I came to Hong Kong myself, I was very surprised in a bad way, but shocked about the banking system here.
Yeah.
Coming from the Netherlands, I never really thought about it.
Specifically business banking or personal?
At that point, personal, because
Okay.
I wasn't running my own business. I was an employee of a company, so I was just trying to open a bank account for myself as an individual, and I was quite surprised that my own experience was, first of all, it was a Saturday, so some of the banks were closed. Then I found a branch that was open. And it turned out to be a little more difficult than I thought because I was quite new to the city. I didn't have a proof of address. So then they had to send me something to my home. Then I had to sign it, send it back. And then they said the signature didn't match. So it was
I'm having flashbacks.
bit of a hassle. And then the online banking was also not really what I was used to. And it was something that I never thought about because in the Netherlands, now that I'm in this industry and know a lot more about it, I know that, Europe is more advanced, but when I was living there, it's not something I thought about. And also Hong Kong is often thought about as a financial center, and it is in some sense, but not necessarily on their retail banking end. So when I read about Igor and David's story and their vision, their frustrations they had with banks and the the vision that they had, that they saw that they could improve it, build something new. That really appealed to me, and I also thought, I can see that there's a big opportunity here. So I met them. It was very casual. We got along well, and I joined the team.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned like Hong Kong is considered to be a banking center, but then they're sort of behind when it comes to the technology with banking. Why do you think that is?
There's different reasons. It has to do with consumer like expectations or demands. Some people, they actually like to meet a banker face to face, which is fine, but it doesn't work in every situation. So for example, for niche, a lot of our customers, they've got ties with Hong Kong, which is why they want to have a Hong Kong account, but they're not necessarily based there. They might be running a trading company, trading a lot with Hong Kong or China, but maybe one of the directors is based in, say, the UK, which means that they don't want to fly here just to open a corporate bank account.
Yeah. Okay. So you see their story and then you get inspired. You join the team. Talk to me about the early days. I know that at the beginning you weren't even thinking about business banking. Right? You just focused on personal.
Correct. So at first, I think in every startup you go through like different phases and stages, and you go through some pivots and learnings, and maybe what you think on day one is going to work turns out to not work as you expected. So in the early days, our initial idea was to focus on the student market, and our thoughts behind this were, if we want to launch something new, probably the younger you go in terms of age, the more open people are to trying something new, as well as from like a marketing perspective. Students, they usually are, they live, or at least they go to school on campus, so they're very concentrated. So in a way, it's easier to target them. But then when we actually launched the product, we did a couple of launch events to kind of get to know our customers, be closer to them. And what we found out is that people that actually showed up at these events were a little bit older than the student demographic that we expected to show interest. There were a lot of young professionals, so maybe more like late 20s, early 30s, a lot of expats, a lot of entrepreneurs. So what we found out is that in Hong Kong, a lot of banks, they have very good credit card programs in terms of rewards. And what we actually found out is that students, which makes sense in a way, because students, they have very limited budgets. So even if they have to wait a long time in a line to get maybe one of these credit cards, they prefer to get a good reward or like some points rather than save time or have a better experience. Whereas a young professional that has a very busy life, they might care much more about, I don't want to waste, I have to work, I cannot just wait at a bank to do something. I prefer to do it in my own time, do it online. So we found out that group was much more interested. And then what naturally followed from that initial target group of personal was that actually it came from the customers, that they asked us about a business solution. So we got a lot of inquiries, as well as we just saw it as an opportunity in the market, because more and more sort of articles came out in newspapers and blogs, people complaining about how difficult it was to open a corporate bank account. So we saw this opportunity, we tried it out, and then we gained a lot of traction. So now today we have our personal product as well as business product, but we are mostly focused on our business product.
What were the early challenges? I mean, if you're trying to set up a new banking, like an online banking system in Hong Kong, and then you have all these old banks, these institutions, I'm assuming that there was some pushback, right? Or there probably still is some pushback. I
So first of all, I have to say that we're not a bank from a regulatory point of view. So how we work is we partner with banks, we partner with regulated institutions, but we're not a bank ourselves. But we can offer services like bank transfers or receiving payments by partnering with these different institutions. Sure, I would say some banks might see us as competitors, so not every bank wants to partner with us, but there's enough banks that you can find the ones that are willing to partner up, because for some of them, they see it as an opportunity, simply because the target group that we're going after wouldn't necessarily be wouldn't really be in competition with the sort of target audience they go after themselves. Because for a lot of banks, actually going after a startup doesn't make that much sense.
Because the return might not be that much.
Correct.
Yeah.
Startup doesn't maybe generate that much revenue for them. For us, we've digitalized a lot of our KYC. So KYC is to know your customer process, the due diligence process. So our process is fully compliant, but we digitize a lot of elements, which brings down our cost. Whereas for a bank, these costs can run much higher.
Speaking of which, can you sort of walk for the audience, maybe some of the people are not familiar with the process, can you walk them through like the digital, how you can set up a Need account basically?
Yes, so how it works, we changed it a little bit, I think probably since you signed up.
Yeah.
So you log into our website, then you fill out your company name and the jurisdiction. So most of the time it will be Hong Kong company. And then what we do is it takes maybe a minute or so because we actually pull information from the company's registry. So we search in the registry on the back end through API and see if the company name you filled out, whether we can actually find it. So whether the company actually exists. If it does, then you can see in the list to confirm is this your company. And then you continue. Then we ask you to for your business registration certificate. And this is actually the only document in terms of business documents that we ask you for, because the certificate of incorporation form, annual return, we don't ask it from the customer because actually we can get it directly from the company's registry,
Sure.
which is easier for the customer and also more secure for us, as we are sure that it's the original document. Then we ask the customers to upload a passport, scan of the directors and ultimate beneficial owners. And on the background, of course, we do several checks to make sure that this is a valid copy. Then we ask questions about the business to find out what it is actually that this business does. Because we do have industries that we cannot deal with. You can also find it on our website. So besides illegal industries, there are certain high-risk industries that we cannot engage with, for example, gambling or adult industry. So even though these might be legal, it's not businesses that we can onboard. So we find out more about the business.
Just high risk in what sense? Like, how do you evaluate that that's not? How did you guys decide that those are industries that you can't deal with?
It depends. Sometimes it's based on our own assessment. Sometimes it's based on our partners' requirements that they cannot deal with. That they tell us if you want to work with us, you cannot onboard
so the
these
banks
things.
kind of stipulated.
Yes, it can be either by the banks or by us,
Sure.
depending. Or some high value industries that are just more high risk, so we cannot onboard them. So we ask questions about the business, find out, or we ask, what type of customers do you deal with? Are these individuals, companies? Where are your customers based? So just so we understand more about the business. It doesn't take very long to fill out our application. It takes around 15 minutes. And then what happens on the background? First, we do a lot of automated checks, and then we've got our compliance officers look at the package. And in addition, we also ask the directors and shareholders to upload a video. It's like a one-sentence video, and we use this to check that this is the same person as on a submitted passport, so that it's not just a passport that someone found somewhere online. And also, it's a video and not just a selfie, for example, so that we can make sure that it's a real person, a live person, and not a photo, for example. So that's what we do so that's in short what our application process looks like.
What were some of the earliest challenges that you faced within the company, and how did you overcome them?
It's quite a lot. I think in any startup in the beginning, it's always funding is tight. So now we've raised some VC money so we can spend money on, for example, marketing. But in the early days, you have to be very creative and really have to think about how can I show some early traction to attract investors without spending a lot of money. So when we were looking at the student market, for example, this meant partnering up with student societies. We're also doing lots of events, partnering with startup organizations, co-working spaces, accelerators. So a lot of these kind of organizations, they are willing to, if they like our product and I think it's useful, they're willing to spread the word without, necessarily needing any sort of reward, just because they think it is a product that's helpful for their participants or their network. So we've made use a lot of that. We've been lucky to also get quite a lot of word of mouth in terms of customer acquisition, where actually it spreads a lot. So that's been good. I think one of the challenges, of course, was also finding that product market fit. So testing different propositions, shifting our focus more from personal to business. So it's always, I think in the early days, it's always a challenge. I don't think we necessarily made a mistake to go for a personal first, because I think it also really helped us when we launched business, that there was already something, if someone would be looking into us.
There was already like a huge problem.
There was a problem, but also I think for a business to sign up for something like Neat, there's a higher maybe barrier, because it's your company's money. It's probably higher amounts that we're talking about. So you probably do more due diligence as a company. And at that time when we launched Neat Business, if you would be looking for needs, you would see that we already have a team. You can see that we've got a following on Facebook, on social media. So it looks very legitimate. And whereas for Neat Personal, when we just started out, of course, on day one, there's nothing. And I think if at that point, if we had gone out with Neat Business, it would probably have been pretty difficult. So in that sense, Neat Personal really helped us in the branding and marketing for Neat Business. But of course, it was a bit of a struggle and challenge to find the perfect product market fit.
What would you say most of your customers, what space are they in now?
So there's different industries that are quite popular amongst our customer base. I would say there's 4 sort of main industries that we're seeing. One is consulting. So we've got a lot of usually smaller companies that are, for example, they've got a digital marketing agency, or they're consulting on business strategy. Then there are the traders, so people importing, exporting. And traders, I would kind of subgroup it into 2 groups. There's the traditional traders, as well as the e-commerce traders, either selling on their own stores or selling on marketplaces. And then the 4th group are technology startups, software companies.
Cool. How big is the team now?
So at the moment, we're with over 30 full-time employees.
Cool. And then you went from how many at the beginning to 30 now?
Well, at the beginning, so it was David and Igor, our 2 co-founders, and then I joined. So the first year we were pretty small. We had 2 app developers, I think, and a customer support. Those are things that are very essential. You've got to develop your product, you have to do some marketing, and you need customer support. So a lot of the pillars are still the same, but those teams have just grown. Like customer support team is quite large at the moment. We also have part-time support staff, so they can do support on the weekends or nights. And we also have some new departments that didn't exist in that first year. For example, operations department, or like in-house accounting team. So of course the team has grown quite a bit.
So at the moment you said, your focus obviously is in the marketing space and probably strategic partnerships, right? How do you go about identifying strategic partners? Because I think I discovered you because I was doing a Google search, but I knew that you guys were opening up the business side because of Michael McLeany. And then just by coincidence, you guys also work with Brink, and Nick Ramil, one of the co-founders of Brink, is like my mentor. So this is like
we're doing an event with Nick very soon as well.
Yeah, actually, you can promote that if you want to. What was the event?
On May 10th, we are doing an event about setting up your e-commerce company and bootstrapping it to 100,000 USD in sales.
So how do you go about identifying the strategic partners that you work with?
So there's different. So how we do it is when we started, and it's always evolving. We've had a bit of some brainstorm. So which kind of pillars do we want to go after? And then within those pillars, we find the top players. So for example, one of the pillars would be accelerators and co-working spaces to kind of target the startup ecosystem. So Brink would be an example of one of the accelerators. And in Hong Kong, we've got lots of co-working spaces that we work with as well. And being, for example, about WeWork, we partner with them pretty closely. Then there is another very big bucket, which is the corporate secretaries and accounting firms. These are really good partners because corporate secretaries, these are the people you usually go to when you want to incorporate your company. So that's really the right time to target customers. These companies are really good for us supporting as well. So this is like one of the, and also a lot of them, they actually come as inbound leads because they are looking for solutions for their clients. And then, of course, there are there's product integration partners. So to give one example, and this will expand, but just to give two examples of product sort of partnerships that we're doing today are for our remittances. Customers of us might know actually that we work with a company called Instagram, which is a remittance company based in Singapore. So when you make a international payment, you make it through our platform, but we do have a partnership with a remittance company in order to execute our payments at a high speed and low cost. We've also we also now newly partnered with a company in the UK called Rails Bank, which ties into also what you were asking me about multi-currency accounts. So Rails Bank is a company in the UK, and they are providing us with pound and euro accounts. So these are local accounts. So what our customers get is local accounts in the SFA region, so they can make and receive payments from within Europe at no cost. We are just testing this solution now with around 100 customers, and we're just ironing out some bugs. And once we feel comfortable, we will launch it across all of our customers. And this company will likely also help us with US dollar accounts in the US. But since they're a UK company, their main products are the pound and the euro account, but they also have US dollar available as well.
And if you talk about the manufacturing space, you identify somebody like me.
Correct.
Of course, yeah.
Manufacturer, and especially now that we're going into China is going to be more and more important for us. Actually,
speaking of China, do you get a lot of Chinese-owned trading companies that have Hong Kong registered businesses applying
not
for
yet,
it? Or?
Because I think we still have some work to do in terms of localization of our marketing products. We only recently launched our Chinese website, and already from that we are seeing some inquiries. But the inquiries we're seeing so far are mostly potential partnerships, people that are really looking, very actively looking for these kind of solutions to reach individual business owners. I think we have to do more work. We have just this month, we hired our Chief Customer Officer, Kenny Lee, who will be in charge of our China expansion. And he's very experienced. He has co-founded several payment companies before in China. So I think definitely the next few months, we will see more of this.
So just before the interview started, you mentioned that you opened up a Shenzhen office. Is that part of the strategy of expanding into China?
Yes. So our strategy in terms of China expansion is to, at least at this stage, to mostly focus on targeting cross-border sellers. So Chinese sellers that already are very international, that sell their products in Europe, the US, maybe other countries in Asia. And that needs a business account to support their international operations. So we won't be focused on our target audience. Wouldn't be someone that is just operating in China, needs a Chinese bank account to handle their domestic operations. So we are very much going after someone that needs like an offshore solution in Hong Kong, or euro accounts, US dollar accounts, and has very international operations.
What, I guess if you were pitching Neat, what would you say is the benefit of using your platform?
So there's a couple of benefits.
Versus trying to get a traditional bank account.
I think online account opening is a huge benefit for people, especially those not based here in Hong Kong. Then once you have the account, it's much easier to use. We've got very friendly support staff, and the multi-currency account with the localized payment instructions is also not something that companies can usually get with a bank. And then I would say lastly, there's also a good group of customers that have bank accounts in Hong Kong, but the reason that they opened a Neat account was because they couldn't get cards with their bank, and they need a MasterCard to make some purchases. So we definitely also have customers that come to us mostly for the cards. Either they need one card or they might need several cards for their employees as well.
That's something that we actually didn't mention. Is like for me right now, I process all of our business payments, like the applications that we use and stuff, through the Neat Mastercard because it's super convenient to do that. And like you mentioned, so you sort of have that master platform, and then you can have individual cards for each person. So that's been a big thing for me, is being able to give like my project manager her own card and make sure that if anything happens, she has a card for business expenses. It's been awesome.
Great. Good to hear.
I think last time we spoke, I was asking you about sort of like withdrawals in China. Why do you think there's a limit on withdrawals in China? Is it do you, like how do you go about fixing that? Is it doing partnerships with the government, or is it specifically directly with the banks in China?
I think it's a discussion. So for us at the moment, we are partnered with a card issuer. So we're not issuing our own cards. So it would have to be a discussion with our card issuer to sort of resolve this. To resolve that,
okay. Some of my followers asked about payments into Canada. So obviously, I mean, I don't know how many Canadian users you have, but like from what I understand, there's quite a few. So is that something that you're working on for the near future?
So for Canada, I cannot make a promise because we're testing it. We've run into some issues. So it's likely going to be available for our international accounts, from the Euro account making a payment to Canada, for the US account making a payment to Canada. From the Hong Kong account, we've run into some issues, so I cannot really promise you a timeline on that yet.
And then payments into mainland China?
So payments into mainland China is something that we've been working really hard on, and we wish we had already launched it because we know it's like a very, very big, important feature.
It's probably going to be huge.
Yes.
Once it happens, right? Like it's
yeah. So the latest that we've heard is that it's going to be there the coming month. In the first stage, it's going to be payments to businesses. And then maybe for the future, also payments to individuals. And in stage 1, it's going to be payments to businesses. And we expect it to be there next month. So hope all of the testing will...
And then integration to sort of accounting software like Xero, QuickBooks, Zoho Books?
Yes. So at the moment, we have already almost finished our integration with Xero. So that will be launched soon. For the other accounting platforms, we don't have a timeline yet. Simply because Xero offers a very easy way to integrate. So it was very easy for our product teams to do. As well as from our research, this seemed to be the most popular platform amongst our customers, so we prioritize that. For the other platforms, we don't have a timeline yet. Of course, today customers can export their transactions and so export the CSV, import it into their system, but it's not fully automated yet.
This is like a personal thing. I remember at the beginning, I would send messages through the app, and I feel like I was dealing with one or two people. Obviously now that's expanded. So how does it work? How many people do you have literally just answering questions through the app on a daily basis?
So our support team in total, I think we're around 10 people at the moment. And usually what we try to do with the chat is that one person sort of handles the conversation. But of course, that's not always possible because there are shifts. Maybe one person enters shifts at 6 or 7, and then the night shift starts. But we always, of course, try to make sure that the transition is smooth. But of course, there is a bigger team now.
And what time does your support staff work? From what time to what time?
So our regular support hours are 9 a.m. To around 10 p.m. at night. However, there is definitely, of course, during regular office hours, 9 to 6 p.m., we're fully staffed, so the response will be faster. At night, we usually deal more with the urgent issues.
Do you ever get clients who just kind of they want to come see the office, when there's an issue? Do they ever be I want to come physically?
Sure. I mean, the way that we work is we want to be fully online, also because it works better in terms of for us operationally. So we don't really normally. I would say we don't usually invite customers over because we wouldn't be able to handle that. But definitely we do have customers like walk in because they have questions or because they want to see that we're real. Sometimes, yeah.
You want to see that you're real. Do you have, I guess, in terms of the companies that you work with, is there a specific, like, are they mostly from the US, Hong Kong registered companies, or is it like, Europe, or it's a kind of a mix of a lot of different places?
The vast majority are Hong Kong registered companies in terms of the nationalities or where the founders come from. Of course, some of them are local in Hong Kong or based in Hong Kong, but expats. I would say at the moment, probably a little bit more Europeans. Not sure why, that's just the trend that we've seen.
Okay. So before I jump into like some of my closing questions, do you have any specific things you want to touch on?
No, I think we've covered a lot today, so.
All right, cool. I don't want to keep you for too long. So some of my closing questions, what is the smallest thing that you guys have done that's brought you the largest results? So Pareto's 80-20 principle.
I think daring to make the choice to really go all in on neat business. Now it seems obvious, but at the time that we made that decision, we weren't sure yet, but we had to make that choice because we have limited resources. So we had to make a choice and it paid off.
Biggest success in NEAT so far?
I would say our biggest success is our growth that we've seen on all fronts. Customer growth, as well as the fantastic team that we've built.
If someone was to understand you better, what 3 books, podcasts, blogs would you recommend they check out?
3 books that I like, I would say one is called Traction, especially for non-marketers. I really like this book because it gives a very good basic understanding and overview of how you can apply a sort of growth mindset towards marketing. It gives a very basic overview of all the different channels you can use and how to do testing. Secondly, perhaps a little cliche, but I do really like Lean Startup.
It's cliche for a reason.
More often than even for us now. We are a little bigger. We found product market fit, but whenever we think of a new feature, I or the entire team, we take this approach. We don't just think, oh, let's build this new feature. We always validate, and ask the right questions. Not would you like to see this, but really understand more what's the actual pain point that we're trying to solve. I think that's very important. Thirdly, another book that I really like about marketing is called All Marketers Are Liars. So my title is growth hacker, and I like data. I like looking at numbers and optimizing. But then this book actually balances that a little bit because it is more about storytelling, which I think that in this day and age, when we're thinking so much about data and numbers, we shouldn't forget that very crucial to market. Storytelling is very crucial and will always remain very important in any marketing.
And then, one question I just thought of was, as you're talking, how many people are you managing at the moment?
So our marketing team at the moment is 5 people. Yeah.
What's that like, having gone from being the first employee to like having a team that you're managing, and what's that experience like? It's been fun. Like it can be challenging at times. But we've hired a really, really good team, I'd say. So we work alongside each other very well. They're experts in their niche. So we've got a content person, we've got an events person. So it's been going really well. Okay. Final question: where do you see NEAT going in the next 3 to 5, 10 years?
So our vision for NEAT is to change the way people trade. So today we are focused very much on finance, which will always remain very core to what we do. But it doesn't have to stop there. What we want to build is a platform where transactions remains a core, but there's so much more that we can build around this. Either we can build it ourselves or we can partner up with people to facilitate and make every part of doing international trade easier. Think about not only payments, but trade finance, or even like logistics, or how the interplay between logistics and payments. So there's a lot we can do to change the way people trade.
Cool. So if people want to reach out to Neat or they want to register, how can they find you?
So go to our website, www.neat.hk. If you want to reach us, you can reach us at support@neat.hk, or you can find me on our website, and you can add me on LinkedIn as well.
All right, Iris, thank you for being on the show.
Yes,
And
thanks for
guys,
inviting me.
If you want to reach out to me, that's sourcefineasia.com/made in China. You want to check out the show notes. Of course, we'll have links in the description of this video, all of the links that Iris mentioned, and I will check you guys out next week.